Hello, I'm Leslie Purdy, President of Coastline Community College in Orange County, California. Welcome to this edition of Author. Today we are going to talk about a revolution in higher education. For a number of years now, in reports and magazine articles, we've been hearing about the need to shift or redesign our educational enterprise to meet the needs of the coming century. In his new book, A Learning College for the 21st Century, Terry O'Banion says that the community college is the ideal place for creating a new learning paradigm. He proposes a provocative new concept called the Learning College, which is designed to put learning at the heart of the academic enterprise. The book outlines 6 key principles that define the character of a learning college. In the next hour, we will be talking about those principles, as well as hearing from presidents and faculty at a few of the higher education institutions that have already begun to implement the Learning Revolution concept on their campuses. But first, joining us to talk about this exciting movement is the book's author, Terry O'Banion. In addition to being a prolific writer, Terry is the president and CEO of the League for Innovation in the Community College, which is an organization that promotes innovation and experimentation in all areas of community college development. Welcome, Terry.
Thanks, Leslie.
A Learning College for the 21st Century is your 12th book, I believe, and I think congratulations are in order. In the first week, it sold out. How would you explain this? Were you surprised?
We were surprised. It didn't happen the first 11 times, so we were very surprised about that. But I think the sellout's an indication that this is probably one of the most important topics in all of higher education right now. So we're very pleased about that.
Good. Well, tell us a little bit more about some of the reform efforts you mentioned that led up to it and that are going on.
Well, we're all in education familiar with reform movements. Next year I celebrate my 40th year in education, and I've probably been through 10 or 12 reform movements. I've been on the front lines of several of them. In the last decade, I think there have been 2 major waves of reform. Starting with the 1983 book, A Nation at Risk, that came out with Terrell Bell and the Commission on Excellence in Education, we really started a wave of reform that's probably the most broadly developed, probably the strongest reform movement in my lifetime in education. We, as a result of that reform effort that I call the first wave of education reform in terms of contemporary time, we added high school graduation requirements in every state in this union. We increased teaching standards across the board.
This was mainly at the K through 12 level?
That's right. It was mostly at the K through 12 level because that was the focus of education, and most of those reform efforts throughout the 80s were on K through 12. But when we looked back and analyzed the impact of that reform effort, educators and critics came to the conclusion that it was absolutely a colossal failure. It just didn't do the job. And it didn't do the job because all the reform efforts were directed towards sort of tweaking the current educational system, trying to fix a system that later we sort of began to figure out was wrong, an education system that no longer worked. So that started a second wave of education reform in the early 1990s. And in the last 5-6 years, educators all across the country, K through 12, now community colleges, 4-year colleges, universities, have been framing a second wave of educational reform that is loosely generally called and referred to as the Learning Revolution.
Okay, and how does it differ from then the earlier reform?
Well, I'm sure there are critics who say it doesn't. But as I've looked at those 8 or 10 education reforms over the last decade, this one looks very different to me. It has a very specific focus. For the first time in all the education reform movements that I examined in my book and that I've been a part of personally, this reform movement does 2 things that we haven't done in the past. Number one, it places learning first. And secondly, it places learning first by attempting to overhaul the historical architecture of education. Those are that's the learning revolution in a nutshell.
Okay. In what ways is the Learning College related to some of the principles which come out of instructional design theory and research, namely the focus on learning outcomes and perhaps definition of instructional objectives?
Well, I think it's a direct outcome. All throughout the 80s, part of the reform efforts in assessment and outcome measurements led up to this, and actually gave us the groundwork, I think, for building this current model of learning revolution. We got better at assessment, we got better at defining outcomes, and if we can bring that experience of the assessment movements of the late 70s and throughout the 80s and early 90s into the learning revolution, we have a basis for looking at outcomes and measures which will really give the substance, I think, to the learning revolution.
Okay, I see where you're going. But haven't higher education institutions always emphasized learning?
Well, you'd have to more or less. I think there's no question but that learning is sort of the inferred activity of institutions, but the behaviors don't always reflect that. If you ask, for example, universities what their purposes are, they always respond, our purpose is research and teaching and service. They never say learning. And research and service and teaching are processes that lead to an outcome called learning. Why don't we just put learning first? That's the idea behind the learning revolution. Let's take learning, which we see as the primary outcome of all these processes, and place that front and center in the educational enterprise. And when you do that, you begin sort of rethinking all the structure internally. You think of the language, you think of how positions are designed in the institution to help move the institution toward achieving learning as the primary rather than the process.
It's a change in emphasis in part. It's not that learning hasn't been looked at.
Learning's always been there.
Putting it at number one.
Clear stream, but this new reform effort is saying it needs to have more emphasis, it needs to have more priority, it needs to be front and center in everything we do.
In your book, you said that the second characteristic of the learning revolution is the complete overhaul of the traditional architecture of higher education. What do you mean by the architecture, and what's wrong with it?
Well, what's wrong with the architecture? Every faculty member that's listening to us today could tell you that. What we have done in education, that was the reason for the second wave of educational reform. We have an inherited architecture in education. We are actually still working with a framework and a design that we created as part of the agricultural revolution. Why do public schools still let out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? So kids can go home and gather the eggs and milk the cow. We're still designing schools to fit an agricultural industry of 100 years ago. And then in the early 1900s, 1920s, and 1930s, because of the Industrial Revolution, we designed the schools to fit an industrial model of education. People still refer to colleges and public schools as factory models because they actually were designed on a factory model system. So we have that system now in place that we inherited. It's not something that current faculty and administrators created, but we have inherited an architecture that is, number one, time-bound, place-bound, efficiency-bound, and role-bound. And what we need to do is to change that architecture. We need to blow up the little red schoolhouse and design an educational architecture or framework or structure or infrastructure, however you want to describe it. I like the word architecture. And we need to design that architecture for a knowledge age, for an information age, not for an agricultural or an industrial age.
So one of the things, of course, that's a factor, I suppose, in this current revolution is the instructional technology, the information technologies. How much are those really bringing about the revolution, or how much are those just enabling the revolution to occur?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think a lot of people are sort of self-satisfied that information technology is actually going to bring about the learning revolution. It could or it could not. It could actually delay it. You can, if colleges are just satisfied with adding distance education programs to their curriculum and offering those to students without any change in the infrastructure or without any change in putting learning at the heart and center of everything they do, then we haven't done anything but tinker around the edges. And just because a college now has distance learning doesn't mean they have a learning revolution at all. In fact, technology has the downside that if a teacher is ineffective or boring in a face-to-face classroom with 30 30 students, and you put that teacher on video and broadcast that teacher out to 150 students, they can bore 150 students at the same time. So technology has the power of actually enhancing ineffective teaching and creating great bad learning situations, and there's been some of that going on. So you can't just rely on technology to do it. It's a larger issue there than just technology. Technology is a powerful lever for bringing about change and is absolutely necessary for creating the learning revolution that we're talking about.
Yeah, I agree with you. One of the chapters in your book explores the 6 principles that are sort of required or basic for the learning revolution to occur on a campus. And also in the book you have 6 case studies where 6 institutions are profiled in their efforts to become learning institutions. One of these case studies features the Community College of Denver. Let's see how they have implemented the 6 principles.
For more than 25 years, Community College of Denver has been the People's College, where living up to the word community is an ongoing campaign. The growing successes of CCD students are earning the college some pretty impressive monikers. Responsive, progressive, innovative, entrepreneurial, and visionary. Today, CCD is recognized as a national leader in education reform for the 21st century, providing educational experiences for learners anyway, any place, and any time. Placing learning first is a long journey, an evolution of reworking current educational strategies to create the future every day.
The initiation of an annual planning and accountability process back in 1986 has allowed us to create a shared vision of the kind of college we want this to be, a college where students learn, where they accomplish what they came here to accomplish.
CCD engages students in the learning process by identifying their skills when they first enter school. The basic skills assessment, which all students take, determines their strengths and deficiencies. At-risk students receive extra attention from advisors and instructors, and orientation helps CCD learners become familiar with their new environment. The Academic Support Center helps assure student success with computer-aided tutoring and a variety of student support programs. The college's overriding goal is student success. Students can attend day, evening, and weekend classes, or enroll in flexible continuing education, weekend college, and 3 technical education centers.
The technical education centers are located in the neighborhoods where the need is the greatest. They are close to the community, and they make a connection between the community and the Community College of Denver.
Students can enroll any day of the week, year-round, study at their own pace and exit when they are job-ready. CCD offers programs for students of all ages and backgrounds, first-time students, individuals seeking either a career change or skills upgrade for work, first-generation students who want to earn a degree, graduates or those who wish to transfer to a 4-year college or university. Students can choose from more than 90 programs. They can learn in traditional classrooms, computer-assisted classrooms, study groups, and multidisciplinary teams. Students receive extra help from tutors and mentors, and CCD provides self-guided computer software programs for nearly every subject.
We provide home study courses, which are independent study courses. We provide the conventional telecourse opportunities, and we're now moving into online or distance education courses using the internet.
What exactly is
Most importantly, CCD students learn the critical skills of speaking and listening, writing, reading, computing, and valuing diversity. These are competencies expected of students in every class. At CCD, learning is doing. Participation helps create change in students and raises their self-esteem and level of social skills. The La Familia Scholars Program, funded by a Title III grant, is just one collaborative learning model at CCD. It aims to improve student success and retention rates.
Well, one of the major goals of the Lafayette Scholars Program is to create models of instruction and student services. One of our most exciting models has been the Learning Community classes. A unique feature of the Lafayette Scholars Program is that it brings together staff from all areas of the college, instruction, student services, and technology, to create a more integrated learning experience for our students. Peer mentors, case managers, learning community faculty all work together to help students to be more successful.
Well, they're very supportive of the Lafayette Scholars Program. Come down to case managers, staff, mentors, the rest of the students. We all stick together, we all help one another. And when you have someone behind your back pushing you like that, it's easier to be successful, and it is a lot easier to stay in school.
Collaborative learning also occurs through internships, externships, service learning programs, and on-the-job training with Metro Denver businesses and civic organizations. CCD teaches the skills and information businesses demand, forming partnerships to accomplish the educational objectives. Johnson Controls, a leading national manufacturer of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning technology, is one of CCD's partners with its regional training facility on the CCD campus.
Johnson Controls has a base for recruiting new hires. The HVAC industry is becoming increasingly technological, and we need to hire high potential people who already have a base of technical knowledge so that they can become productive very rapidly.
By placing the student first, CCD faculty and instructors are no longer role-bound. They are consultants, facilitators, guides, mentors, coaches, and trainers.
Our faculty and staff think of themselves as people who facilitate learning, and they encourage our students also to be facilitators of learning.
Several years ago, CCD's faculty created a statement of values for teaching and learning, which now is part of the college fabric. CCD's teaching and learning process makes students independent learners and provides opportunities for critical thinking and problem solving.
In creating their statement of teaching values, the faculty also focus on student outcomes, and that includes, of course, skill attainment, mastery of concepts and knowledge that's important to the areas of study that students have chosen.
The college's Teaching Learning Center provides professional development opportunities where faculty and staff create and evaluate new learning options.
That can happen through the integration of technology using the Instructional Designers, the Multimedia Center. That can happen through the Service Learning Center as we bring the classroom into the community through experiential education. It can happen through the application for mini grants to create a new project, or it can happen in the participation in workshops and professional activities that are designed to share ideas and learn about best practices.
The bottom line for a learning college is what does the learner know, and can the learner meet the expectations of today's marketplace?
Our annual process of reviewing what we accomplished the year before and talking about what we want to accomplish in the year ahead has given us a way to learn from our experience, to learn from student achievement, and as a result of the cumulative effect of annual processes, we've seen a 100% increase in the number of successful students, graduates, and transfers over a decade. The Community College of Denver is on a path that in effect leads us down I think an increasing learning curve, helping more students succeed year by year.
The keystones to educational reform at CCD are inclusion and collaboration. The challenges are funding, dealing with government accounting practices, combining high-tech with high-touch, and allocating existing dollars toward priority plans. The pendulum swing to put students first is propelling the college through the challenges and into the 21st century. This momentum won't end until students achieve all they come to CCD to achieve.
Terry, the Community College of Denver looks like it has really taken this learning revolution and fully developed it and implemented the 6 principles. It look kind of easy? Is it as easy as it looks?
Well, have to keep in mind the Community College of Denver has been at this longer than anyone else, Leslie. They really have been at this for 10 years now. And Byron McLean and his staff have done an outstanding job really implementing those principles. So what they were showing there were those 6 basic principles from the book, and they were illustrating how they've implemented them. It's that easy. It's not that easy. The basic principles are not the final answer to bringing about the learning revolution. I sat down with a group of faculty and I said, if you could totally redo the educational institution here, if you could put learning at the heart and center of everything you do, and if you could change all of the structure here, the time-bound limits and the place-bound limits, etc., and you had some guidelines for that, what's the common wisdom that you would use to do that? And so we came up with those 6 principles. You know, they're not rocket science. This is basic stuff that's been around in education. I think the beauty of it is that it's coming together around this idea of changing the architecture and putting learning first. Those two key purposes of the learning revolution. And so the 6 principles just provide a sort of guidepost for a college as they begin to make that restructure.
So they're not in sequence necessarily.
No, I don't think that the principles aren't in any way meant to be. You do this step and this step and this step. It's the common wisdom that's already embedded in every faculty in this country, made visible. And if you make it visible, then it seems to me you have some guidelines there, some guideposts that as you work through restructuring the institution and putting learning first, these principles will provide that kind of guidance. Just take the principle, for example, of increasing the numbers of options for students to learn. Well, no one will argue against that. That's a sound, basic principle in education that we've always known, but we don't implement it. We just don't implement it enough. We settle for 1 or 2 options, and what was illustrated at the Community College of Denver is that they may take one course, and they may make that course available to students in print form for students who can succeed in that venue. They make that available to them in video. They'll make it available to them in small groups. They'll make it available to them in traditional class structures because some students perform best in that. What they've recognized is that students learn differently. You and I know that. Every faculty listening to this tape knows that. And what they've tried to do is to say, let's recognize that students learn differently, teachers teach differently, and let's provide as many options as we can. That's one of the key principles in the book.
So one of the other principles then relates to the fact that this changes the role of the faculty member. It even creates new positions that may not have existed before in our institutions. Is that right?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the more heretical principles in there, that the role of the learning facilitators depends upon the role of the learners. And so you begin to define what the stakeholders in the institution, the faculty, the full and the part-time, the support staff, all the administrators, what should they be doing to improve and expand students' learning? And when you ask it that way, you might get different answers than to say, this instructor should teach 4 sections of Composition 101. You just get a different kind of fix on it. And I think that's illustrated quite well there in the Community College of Denver.
Another college featured in Terry's book is Lane Community College, which is using the learning revolution to bring about a change in an institution that had become preoccupied with bureaucracy.
When I came to Lane in 1990, having two other fine community colleges, I was just overwhelmed with the quality that I found here, the quality of the services, quality of the programs, and just felt like this is a place where people had really tried to create perfection, create something that was extremely valuable to students. But as I started to dig deeper, I noticed that under the surface of quality, there was a problem. There was a lot of bureaucracy, and there was also kind of a fragmented quality on the campus. People didn't know each other, they didn't work together. And because of this bureaucratic aspect of this fragmentation, the college was slow to react. And at that time, in about 1990, there were lots of things to react to. There were lots of changes going on. So I began to get interested in something that we could substitute for bureaucracy. And I started reading about high-performance work organizations. And it seemed to me like Lane needed to become a high-performance work organization. move away from this bureaucratic framework that had been here for so many years. But the challenge of a high-performance work organization is that it has to be value-driven. There has to be a single value that unites people and pushes them, motivates them toward their work. And I wondered, in a pluralistic society, in a large community college, where in the world are you going to find a single value that will pull people together and unite them, and they can all say, yes, I support that. And we didn't find one until we made an effort through the college council to develop a new vision for the college. The college council here is made up of faculty, managers, classified, and students, and myself. And we spent several meetings trying to develop a new vision statement. This was in about 1994. And the statement that we finally came up with was quality learning experiences in a caring environment. The single focus, the single value that we decided that united us was a concern for learning and a value in learning. So that value became the basis for our movement into being a learning college. So with all the activities that we had going on in support of the learning college, I felt like we were reaching a plateau that I think Terry O'Daniel's book is going to help us move beyond. We were in need of a conceptual framework to put all this visioning activity into. We had talked about the learning college, and we'd done a lot of things to support the learning college ideal, but there really wasn't a depth of understanding of just exactly what it meant or where to go from here. And that's really provided by Terry's book, especially chapter 3, where I think he does an excellent job of laying out characteristics of a learning college. So when his book came out, one of the most interested readers was me. I suppose a question that people might have is what has been the impact of this vision on the campus. I think it's like many visions or many movements. It's had more impact with some people in some places than it has in other. But I think generally speaking, it's given a lot of people a way to move in new direction and do things that they didn't have an opportunity to do before. It's broken down the sort of narrow job description that you find so much in bureaucracy. And so I feel a sense of movement or a sense of vitality on campus that perhaps wasn't here at some times in the past. And I think that part of that is the spirit of the learning college.
Terry, how much do you feel that Lane is typical of community colleges or atypical?
Well, I think in this situation, Leslie, they're fairly typical. As I work with community colleges around the country, and I've had a chance now to consult with over 500 of them, it seems to me that Lane is pretty typical in the feeling that we are bogged down in bureaucracy, and people don't have the connections they had here when we first started this college back in the 1960s. I often get that from people. That people have lost their connect. And so I think when Jerry Moskowitz came into Lane Community College, he put his finger exactly on the right issue. And what he did there, I think so elegantly, was to take an institution that had become more bureaucratized than it had been in the past, perhaps had lost its connections among its people as one of the really outstanding community colleges in the country. And what he did was to say, how can we rejuvenate and re-engineer the institution to bring back the days when Lane really was a thriving, outstanding creative institution. And he and his staff saw that placing learning at the heart of that was the way to do that. And I think he's right. I think by bringing a substantive issue to the front of the institution and to say, let's rejuvenate the institution around learning and building a caring community is what they did. I think he had a good leverage to really rejuvenate the institution institution. And after 3 or 4 years, the evidence is beginning to mount that it's occurring.
It's something everyone could buy into and have agreement and feel a connection.
I think you'll find a lot of institutions that feel that they spin their wheels now in bureaucracy. Roger Moe, when he was trying to help redo institutions in the state of Minnesota, he was the state Senate president of the state Senate in Minnesota, and he got very frustrated with institutions of higher education. And he made the comment that higher education is 1,000 years of tradition wrapped in 100 years of bureaucracy. And every time I quote that to faculty, they all laugh because they understand that. And so they're looking for an opportunity to move the institution beyond that perspective, and placing learning first certainly gives them that opportunity.
But you know, when I first saw your book title, I thought it referred to the fact that one of the things that we're all faced with now is ourselves being in a constant state of learning and development. And after reading your book, I began to realize that not only do we need to become dedicated to the learning outcome for the students, but it all requires an incredible amount of learning on the part of the staff and the faculty themselves. How does staff development relate to?
You're right on target, Leslie. There's no question. The learning revolution that I envision is not going to happen unless the entire faculty and the entire staff and the entire administrative group and even the trustees are engaged in their own renewal efforts, their own learning efforts, and in the colleges that I've identified in the book that see themselves as becoming more learning-centered institutions have engaged all the stakeholders in the institution involved in staff development. There's a tremendous effort at training about how to make better decisions, about how to collaborate, about how to work better together.
How to use technology.
How to use technology as a piece of that.
How to work as a team.
How to work as a team is a very important part of that. And Jerry Moskos and his staff at Lane, they did a train-the-trainers model. They trained a large group of staff who in turn trained other staff. And you'll see that in community colleges all across the country now. Tremendous amount of staff development going on in some colleges to begin to get ready to begin addressing the changes. In fact, I was impressed with Metropolitan Community College in Nebraska, where Richard Gilliland has spent 2 years with a special in-house curriculum in which every staff member in the institution has done nothing but participate in training programs, getting ready to begin the discussion.
We've been looking primarily at community colleges up to now, but there are four-year institutions that are also engaged in a learning revolution. Thomas Edison State College in Trenton, New Jersey, offers quality higher education to adults wherever they live and work through distance and experiential learning. We asked Dr. George Pruitt, president of Thomas Edison, to tell us about his efforts to create a learning-centered environment at that college.
Hello. I'm George Pruitt, president of Thomas Edison State College in New Jersey. And I'm delighted to participate in this discussion of Terry O'Banion's book. You'd normally think that the words learning and college would be redundant or repetition. But the fact of the matter is that traditionally, higher education has been a very practitioner-centered enterprise. We describe our colleges and universities as land-grant universities, research universities, liberal arts colleges, teacher training institutions. We describe them in terms of the disciplines they offer, the geography they serve. But we rarely consider them in terms of the clients or the learners that are the rationale for them to exist in the first place. We at Thomas Edison State College are very sensitive to this phenomenon. For we were created in 1972 by the people of New Jersey for the express purpose of serving mature adult learners. For us, the issue is not geography or discipline, but the fundamental nature of the clients we were created to serve. Everything we have done over the 25 years have been designed to characterize and support the unique characteristics of our clients. We've been pioneers in ways of assessing experiential learning. We've done this because adult learners bring considerable college-level learning to the process. We've made great use of emerging technologies to figure out ways to serve students where they are instead of where we are. As a result of that, we are now an institution of 9,000 students spread all over the state of New Jersey, from every state in the United States, and in 80 countries around the world. We've also changed the accountability relationships between the academy and the client. We see ourselves as a vast learning resource made available to our clients for them to use and organize in ways that satisfy their strategic objectives and their particular learning styles and outcomes. We applaud Terry's work in describing the college and university of the 21st century. We've had a 25-year head start on it, and we think he's on the right track. Thank you. Thank you.
Terry, what's different for a four-year institution or a university in trying to implement the learning revolution?
It's a good question, because I think there are some real differences. There are some specialized four-year college universities that I think are excellent models for learning college. The University of Phoenix, Thomas Edison, Empire State in New York, University of Maine. A lot of those distance education colleges, they're moving toward a learning college. But the traditional university is going to have a hard row, I think, to hoe to get to be a real learning college. Because basically universities are collections of disciplined guilds, strong traditions where faculty feel more affiliation sometimes with their disciplined colleagues in other universities than they feel to that university. And so university places a great deal of value on a community of scholars, whereas in community colleges I think we place more value on a community of learners. And so we're much more likely to be able to develop institution-wide initiatives, which I think is going to be very difficult for many universities to even begin to try to develop.
All right. Joining us now to continue the discussion of creating a learning college are Dr. Jan Kehoe, President of Long Beach City College, Dr. Jerry Young, President of Chaffee Community College in Rancho Cucamonga, California, and Monica Taylor, Assistant Professor of Political Science at Chaffee. Welcome. You each bring a different perspective to the process of creating a learning college. Jan, I'm going to start with you as a president here at Long Beach for 6 weeks now. How are you going to approach this challenge?
Well, I think that the best part of Terry's book is that it is a good reference point. I have taken over a college that is very well-versed in planning and has 7 strategic initiatives, 5 of which are based in student learning. So with that good fortune, I think we can proceed with using Terry's book. And I want to thank Terry for having it available in paperback for us.
Good. Jerry, you've been at this a little bit longer at your institution. How's it going? Has it been an easy direct road?
No, I don't think this process is an easy one, and I think we all come at it differently, as Terry's book illustrates. At Chaffee, when I came, we were in need of really some unification as an institution. And at that time, I wrote a vision statement called New Possibilities, which was good for 5 or 6 years, and we essentially ran out of gas. And the institution, I think a number of us felt, wasn't where we needed to be. And I started the process using Champion Hammer's book, Reengineering the Corporation, which is based on identification of key core processes within organizations. Meeting with my vice presidents over 2 years to identify what were our key core processes. And out of that, basically came to the conclusion we only had one, and that was learning. And so that's how we got involved in this.
So you came to the central principle through a little different process.
Yes, quite a bit different than some of the cases that I read that Terry developed.
So you're also seeing a core of faculty as being an important step on this.
Maybe in our thinking, the faculty are where you have to start. They are the key to getting this mainstream in the institution.
Monica, this book is new to you, and the ideas here. How do you feel about them? How do you react to what you've heard so far?
Well, I was excited about Terry's book because of its emphasis on the student as a learner. And as a faculty member, it's important for us to remember that our emphasis should always be placed upon the learner. The learner is changing, and the faculty member needs to change. And so it was great to see chapters on technology and the interest in pushing diversity to change with the learner. Was a great portion of the book.
Do you think this will be a book that will be well received? In fact, Terry, you could comment on this too. You've been out speaking to groups of faculty and administrators. Where do you see the resistance?
Well, one thing I like about what's been said is that each of our panel members and colleagues have indicated a different point of beginning for this. Monica talked about a college begin to recognize the change in the students, and that's true of every community college in the country. Such change there that colleges need to make changes to respond to that. Jerry talked about an institution that sort of hit an end of the road and needed some rejuvenation, and so he started a very slower process, a very concentrated process with a small group of faculty, and is beginning to move it. And Jan said, I inherited an institution, already had a bunch of initiatives on the board, and I'll pick up from there. And I think that's the important message we would want to share with colleagues today, is that you begin where you are. Every institution, there's no magic to this. You don't start at basic step number 1 in the book. We have some steps back there. You know, if you're going to do this, ideally you start at step 1 and go to step 2. But that's ideal. You have to have some steps in your right book. But when you face reality, you start where you are. And most colleges are certainly feeling the need for change. So some colleges start with reorganization. Some colleges start with how we're going to use information technology. Some colleges start when they suddenly realize they're going to stick $6 million in a new building and say, do we really need this new building? Some people start when they say, our student body's changed on us. They changed suddenly. They're very different. What are we going to do about that? So I think that's an important element for us to communicate to our colleagues who are listening in today, that you start where you are, you start with the idiosyncrasies and the culture of your own institution, and you construct your own new learning paradigm out of your own culture and your own interest and your own needs. Very important point.
I think the comment you made, though, about the fact that we're in an era of tremendous change in our colleges. And it's sometimes, I think it's hard to pick what direction we want to go with all the options that are before us. You know, do we become more of a community-centered institution? Do we become more of an academic institution? Do we just become short-term? So I think what's helpful with a book like yours in presenting the learning concept is to help us sort through all those forces for change and pressure for change that I think our institutions are all feeling. At least I know that we in California here are feeling it particularly.
I think one of the foundations has to be a faculty mentality change. You have to boost up a foundation, get faculty members to understand that they should want to change, get them invigorated, get them excited about the learning revolution. Therefore, they pass that excitement on to their students naturally. It's not something that they're being forced to do. So I think the foundation has to be faculty members who, first of all, make it mandatory to buy and read the book. I know Terry would like that. Buy the book, read it, and try to make it an internal change before you push that change externally onto your students.
I would like everyone to buy the book, but the royalties don't go to me. They go to the American Association of Community Colleges. I'd like them to buy the book because I'd like for colleges to become more learning-centered institutions. And I think you do start with the faculty. And I'm impressed with how the faculty are ready for that. I think it's easy sometimes to beat up on the faculty, that they're the ones that resist change and so forth, and we understand that. But when you start helping faculty understand that you might be able, through this learning revolution, create an institution in which you free them up from the time structures and the place structures and the role-bound models that we've inherited. There's a freeing up of faculty, and I've seen some faculty get very excited about that in terms of the new opportunities that are presented to them.
Terry, I think you're right. This 2-year task force we've had on learning, one of the first things that popped out of that group was a senior faculty member who distrusted the process and basically said, I've been down this road before. Nobody's really going to listen to us. Nobody's going to take our ideas. And it was only after they had a chance to really lay some of that out with each other that they gained enough confidence then to begin to take that process seriously.
I think faculty are rightly cynical about reform efforts and new ideas. We come in as administrators and leaders sometimes and say, oh, we're going to get very excited about the new assessment models, the new accountability models, or now we're used to humanistic education, or it's a total quality management or something, and they become very cynical about that. And faculty become cynical about the learning revolution too, and they should. They should question its every turn. If there isn't something here more substantive than there was in past reforms, then this too will pass
But let me ask the difficult question, and it comes from the point of view of a president, and that is, isn't this going to be very expensive? I mean, just the infrastructure for the technology is expensive. The staff development is expensive. Some of the, when I was reading some of your chapters, I realized that it looks like an expansion in the number of staff members. I mean, there's more people at the assessment end. There's probably more counseling. There's certainly more support staff for the media-based and distance learning. What about the cost?
No question. Cost is going to be one of the clear issues, but I wouldn't address this issue that it's a cost issue only. It seems to me it's a reallocation of resources issue rather than an increased cost issue. If you just increase the cost, that's the way we always resolve problems. Just give me more money and I'll add another program, I'll add more faculty, I'll add more buildings. So you have this sort of add-on mentality. What I'm talking about in the learning revolution, and what some of my colleagues are talking about, is a major substantive change in the architecture of education. And if you make that commitment, then you free faculty from the roles in which they're currently bound. So I'm not talking about adding 20% more faculty in terms of the current models. Change the roles. That's number one. And that frees up people to do things differently. You also, one of the basic principles talks about involving the students more directly in their own learning. And so you see them as added resources to the process. We know that students learning in collaborative models is one of the most powerful models we have in education. We haven't taken full advantage of that in a true learning college model. Technology, of course, is always going to be expensive, but we're going to do technology whether we develop learning colleges or not. So that cost is there, and you're already spending your money on technology. Right now, you're using it perhaps not to develop learning colleges, but simply to add on to what you're already doing. So I think it's a reallocation of resources that's going to be the key issue here. And colleges are going to have to be creative about that, and they're going to have to see partners in that endeavor. They won't be able to do it all.
I think that your answer helps illustrate how profound the revolution is that you're talking about, though, because it is really going to affect every aspect of the institution, from the record-keeping function to the teaching function to the counseling and advisement, testing. Every part of the institution could be affected by it.
I'd like to add to what Terry said, too. I think one of our best tools in order to get buy-in, if you will, to this kind of change in thinking is our own staff development. And when we offer and allow people to hear about what's involved, then they are the ones that are responsible for advising us on reallocation of resources, that this is the direction their thinking takes. But we have to inform them through staff development. I would say that is necessary for our policymakers as well.
I think the resource question is a multifaceted one. On the one hand, I would agree with Terry. You do not need additional resources to do collaborative learning. You need a change in attitude, you need a change in methodology, those kinds of things. And we're beginning to see some of that occur on our campus. That's a use of the existing human resources you have. I think the technology issue is more tricky. It's a little bit like, how do you get from here to there? We have to maintain the system we have in order to put the courses up, produce course schedules, do all the things that we've always done. At the same time, we're trying to add this technology base to make the shift. And you have to have a certain amount of that technology base in order to shift. So my perception is that, yes, we are indeed going to incur additional costs for a period of time until we can make that transition. And people I talk to don't know when that is, in what year. Is that going to happen at the turn of the century? We simply don't know.
Monica, let me ask you a question. One of the ways that there can be a savings is that instead of a faculty member lecturing to 30 students for 18 weeks, the faculty member may actually be facilitating students using prepackaged materials, whether it's computer-assisted instruction or it's things off the internet or in the telecourse. How do you feel about that role, using materials that may be produced somewhere else, and how do you think your colleagues feel about that?
I feel like our strength is in the material that we have, not necessarily outside of the college, but inside. You'd be surprised some of the strengths, the academic knowledge that faculty members have of their own up here, but have never put it to pen. I think that you need to tap that knowledge and experience first, package it, and feed it to the student before we jump off into necessarily outside sources. Not saying that outside sources are negative, but I think faculty don't realize their own strength in writing their own books, packaging their own workbooks, using students' ideas and putting that into workbooks amongst themselves first, and then using the outside material as an additive.
So there's definitely an authoring and a creative role for faculty members in this learning revolution, as well as the evaluation and acquisition of other materials to fill in the pieces.
And students are a great use to be able to boost that material. You'd be surprised how much knowledge students have in making a learning revolution. They'd say, well, let's do it this way instead of this way. Things that faculty members may have never thought of themselves.
So that's very exciting, but it is a completely different role, I think, for faculty members. And I think, Terry, one place I remember in your book that you said that still the majority of our classes out there in our colleges are the traditional classes.
Oh, I think so. I think we're still, we're not going to, this revolution is going to occur very long. It's going to take a long time to do it. And the real challenge for us is we've still got to serve 3 meals a day while you remodel the kitchen. And that's the real difficulty. I think Jerry was making great part. You can't just stop what you're doing now. So that transition between using an instructor to teach 4 sections, freshman composition, doing the same thing pretty much in every class. We know that's not the best model, and how we transition from that to getting that instructor maybe to teach one section of composition that way, and then maybe work with 75 students in a different kind of way, in different context, through collaborative learning, through using the internet, through videotapes or whatever, or through prep materials, just to increase the numbers of options. If a college would just try to increase the numbers of options it currently offers students, you'd get a big boost in the learning revolution, I think.
One of the things that strikes me, though, is that this could be very confusing for students.
In fact, I think my guess is that students will be one of the great resistors to the learning revolution if we're really successful. Students know what school is. I mean, after all, when they come to us, they've had 12 years experience in it. So they know how to get the A's, they know how to sit on the front row, they know how to figure out what the teacher wants, they know how to do the test, and they know how to work within the traditional system. And so if you start changing the system on them, you're going to get some resistance from students, and I think no question about it.
So there'll need to be orientation and education.
That's why on the front end, I think a key issue is when you engage the student at this new college. There's got to be a real engagement that something's going on here that's different than you probably experienced. And secondly, you've got to take the time in terms of that early assessment engagement to help the student learn about how to navigate this new learning environment. Now, fortunately, K through 12 education is already at this. In many ways, they're way ahead of us in community colleges and colleges and universities in reform efforts. So they're going to be enablers in that. We're going to have students coming in the next decade who are very savvy about how to use technology on their own to learn. Thank you very much. And also how to collaborate. We're going to have those skills because of the reform movement that's occurring there, and that's going to push us as well. So there'll be some help from students in that, but there'll be resistance from a lot of students as well.
I think that's why you have to have such a foundation as far as faculty members, because once they realize this is something that's important, we need to do this, that student resistance won't sway them. They'll say, I know that this is a good product, I'm going to use this, we're going to do it whether you like it or not, so to speak.
Part of the difficulty is that faculty that we have in our institutions have all been probably pretty good students. And so they're like students in the sense that they like the education system like it is because they succeeded in it. And then to come and say to them, now let's change this thing that you've succeeded and that you've kept up, you you've kept it alive for all these years. Let's now change it. That's very difficult to do. So there'll be some resistance from faculty who find great success in the current model.
Right, absolutely.
Why would they want to change? They're quite successful in that model.
Just one little vignette that bears that out. Two of the faculty members who've been involved for the past 2 years in our learning task force decided to team and require their students to do projects together. The students had to form teams and do a project in the community that had some benefit to the community. Practical, applied learning. The students hated this. And I had the chance to sit in and listen to the students, and they were really cute talking about, you know, we never been required to do this before, and this is a lot of work. You're supposed to be doing this, do it to the faculty. And like Monica said, the faculty hung in and said, yeah, I know that's the way we've always done it, but you're going to do it this way. Now, the outcome of that was just outstanding. The students just glowed about their accomplishments, how the project turned out, how much they learned working together as a team. So I think the power, when it's really put together, the power of this is very evident.
You need people willing to just take a risk and to try. We've got one other stakeholder group that I think is affected by or can affect the learning revolution, and that is the policymakers and our elected boards and elected officials. What kind of reactions, Terry, have you gotten so far about the learning revolution from those?
Well, I think if the learning revolution is really going to occur, obviously the policies have to change greatly. All the policies we have are inherited policies that still support a traditional education structure. I mean, we get funded on the basis of seat time, full-time equivalent student or average daily attendance, rather than being funded on the basis of what we're trying to do to create and enhance learning. So that has to change, and that has to come from a policy perspective. But I'm encouraged by the policymakers. Well, I'll just give you a couple of examples. When we first started developing the book, in fact, before the book was written, the Association of Community College Trustees, I wrote a monograph for them called The Learning Revolution, a Guide for Community College Trustees. We wanted to influence the policymakers. So that's been out there. It got sent out to about 6,000 trustees several months ago, and I'm getting all kinds of calls from trustees about how this makes sense to them. I think trustees can sort of relate, say, this is what I joined. It's why I became a board member. I wanted to see learning happen. I didn't want to just deal with budgets and how many trees ought to be planted on the back 40. I wanted to deal with some of these issues. So I think it struck a nerve with them. Then I would look at another policy level. The accrediting commissions are pushing this. We often, I remember when I was active in schoolwork, in institutions, accreditation, we can't do this because the accrediting commission says you can't do that. Now the accrediting commission, certainly the Southern Association and the North Central Association, have very clear standards about student learning outcomes, and they're requiring institutions to move in that way. And that's a policy issue. So as accreditation moves us, as boards of trustees begins to move us, as the new state legislators move us towards performance funding and outcomes funding, the policy folks are beginning to come together. I think that's going to help enhance the revolution.
Jan, any quick comments or?
No, I think Terry's right. I work a great deal with the state legislature, and I think the only danger we have to face is if they jump out ahead without proper background in what we can and can't do and what's appropriate for our students.
The only thing that concerns me is that they may think that this is going to have it be a quick revolution, and that we can just go to an outcomes measure, and it'll be seen in simplistic terms rather than realizing what a very complex process.
I think legislators always oversimplify the complex problem of education, and there is a real danger that they would see this as something they could sort of translate into some simple legislation or codes or figures, and that would solve the issue. We've been down that road so many times. We'll probably go there again.
I'm afraid we're going to have to end our discussion here. I know that there's much more to say about this book and about the ideas in it, but unfortunately we've run out of time. My thanks to our panel and to Terry for sharing your thoughts with us today, and a special thanks to all of you for tuning in. The book is A Learning College for the 21st Century by Terry O'Banion, and is available from the Community College Press and the American Council on Education, or Express. On behalf of PBS Adult Learning Service, I'm Leslie Purdy. Thanks for watching Author.